As humanity traverses the collective dark night of the soul, we came together and decided to step up amongst so much insanity, to be an authentic, heart-centered and unified voice in sharing our personal stories and experiences, with the hope of inspiring and awakening others into their true nature as the eternal God, light and love that we are. In this critical time of evolution, the time is now to choose peace and harmlessness, to seek alignment with truth and courage. The time is now to cultivate our soul, to understand our multi-dimensional selves, whilst guarding and protecting our minds. Let us break down the walls of separation and classification. Let's reconnect our hearts to the oneness. Will you take steps to heal yourself, to choose pro-human values? Our inner work is to free ourselves from pain and delusion, so we can live with clarity and coherence, in service to others and our communities. What is the agenda of the anti-human controllers? What is the agenda of divide and conquer? Imagine what life could be like right now if you lived on this planet in harmless actions. How can we stand up for our inherent human rights? Can we do the right thing in the face of tyranny, in reclaiming our sovereign freedom, demanding truthful information and full disclosure? For one and for all, we are the Truth Pulse.
Good day to our listeners. Thank you for joining the Truth Pulse today. And we have today with us, as you may already know, Linda. Here she is there on the bottom. Hi, Linda. And Trinity in her purple today. And my name is Sonia. Thanks for joining us. Welcome. And so we're going to continue with our podcast series, and we're continuing today with part 2 of our mind control series. And Trinity is going to host this podcast today, and we hope you enjoy. And take it away, Trinity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Yes, so hello everyone, hello to our listeners. And as Sonia said, today we are continuing from our podcast 1, Mind Control 1, where we looked at what is mind control, who benefits from mind control. We looked at human traumatic history, and basically just looked a little bit at those topics around mind control. And today we will be looking a little bit deeper at how mind control is actually delivered to us. How do we receive this mind control? And also maybe sort of repeat a little bit from the previous podcast, the main aim and goal of mind control. So what is the main goal? So looking from sort of summarizing from the past podcast, we could say that the main goal of mind control is to really make sure that we don't wake up. So this is like the fundamental goal. There are other obviously goals that we mentioned in the last podcast, but generally the main goal is so that we continue being zombified sleepwalkers here who don't really know and confused about the reality and don't know what's going on, whilst the mind control is being kind of like rampant and administered to us in every level of our existence here. So that's the main purpose of that, because if we continue being sleepy here, if we continue sort of being sucked into these reality bubbles that are created for us via the TV, via the media, via the educational establishment, everything, all this that is pulled around our eyes, to create this happy reality. Well, not so happy, but like normal, what we consider normal reality. But this reality is deeply mind controlled to keep us locked and not waking up to the true reality. One example is there are a lot of there is a lot of information started coming out about satanic ritual abuse, child sacrifice, all the things that are done currently as we speak. Children are being killed for satanic ritual abuse, and nobody really in the media, in the mainstream media, is talking about this. And if we mention this topic, well, if I mention this topic to someone, it's a very touchy topic. People do not want to really look at it or even talk about it because it is painful, it's traumatic. And this is mind control, because this prevents us from looking at something very, very horrible, which is actually taking place on the planet. And if majority of people were able to be, to see this and be woken up to these facts, then it'll stop. So this is one example why mind control is so important to the negative alien agenda, because it keeps us blind, it keeps us preoccupied with our mortgages and with our debts and with everything, all this palaver which is put in front of our eyes. It's all done specifically to preoccupy us with things like that. It's like complacency, just enjoy your, just like live your life the way it is. Don't think deeper, don't look there, just look over there. So it's all a distraction tactic. So I just wanted to say this before we move on to actually how mind control, how this hypnotic mind control, how this global matrix hypnotic state could be perpetuated for so long and so effectively. So we're going to discuss this, but before, I just want to check with Sonia and Linda if you want to add something to what I've just said about us not waking up, the purpose of mind control.
Yes, I think there's a specific term, we call it mind slides. It basically, you can see when you try to discuss a subject that, you know, like SRA, people just, you know, it's like a shutter comes down. And I think, you know, it's basically just, it's called a holographic insert. I think we're going to discuss more of that, but it's like a program. It's almost like it's already sort of set in the mind that anything that's unapproved, a topic like that, you know, the mind just starts shutting down. The mind just, no, don't want to know that. No, let's talk about something else. So, you know, I mean, it ties in with the ego. It's like, this is why the mind control just latches onto the ego and controls us, because it's easy then for us not to go into any deeper topics or explore any of the, you know, what's been going on, because or even just to discuss, you know, what's going on with ourselves and looking at our shadow and our own pain and trauma, because, you know, that shutter comes down. It's like, no, don't want to know. So yeah, that's what's coming to mind when you spoke about it.
Yeah.
Linda, thank you. Thank you. Anything from you, Sonia?
Not really. I think you both covered it really well. I was going to say something similar, but it was the complacency. Yeah, it's part of the mind control. It's, yeah, just being satisfied with, you know, what has been normalized in our lives, which is actually part of the death culture. And if you really start breaking it down, you know, it's like, what are we subscribing to? What are we accepting as normal? You know, and that's what these series are about, to break it down, to take a look closely, right? There's more to life than what is around us, all of this chaos. But it's getting out of that complacency, like you said, Linda, and it's like, that's part of the ego. It's part of the mind slides. It's part of that technology, those holographic inserts that we'll be discussing in detail. We're all learning together about this. It'll be interesting and exciting for all of us to learn and grow and heal together on this.
Yes, Yes, because yeah, it is a mind slide is a holographic insert, and we were talking that we are actually holographic. We're living in a holographic reality, and our whole system, our consciousness works on holographic basis. So yes, thank you, Sonia. Good point. So what we're going to be looking at is the four main areas where mind control is, how mind control is delivered to us. So the first one is via the installation of predatory human mindset or negative ego software programming. And here we have different Archontic Deception Strategies, and we have Archontic Deception Behaviours, and all of them are to do with ego, negative ego, service to self ego, and this kind of survivalist, selfish, egoic existence based on division and competition, not on cooperation, unified cooperation and self-expression. No. It's all to do with divide, compete with each other, and the fittest will survive. So it's a very kind of almost like a reptilian or mammal type, predatory type of mindset. Also can be described as a death culture, because it's not about, as I said, it's not about self-expression. It's not about just being your own person and growing and maturing in your own way without oppression or suppression or this division and competition. It's about being divided. It's about serving to self. So this is the first one. Then we also have let me just have a look here, electromagnetic spectrum mind control, which is pumped at us via the electromagnetic waves. And here we have various kind of microchip implants. We have nanotechnologies, microwave and electromagnetic technologies. Obviously G5 is another one. Then we have a biochemical warfare, which is directed at our physical body, our nervous system. And this is kind of such a big topic that we're going to do a separate podcast on that. So podcast 3 will be dedicated to biochemical warfare. We'll be sharing examples and going in a bit more depth into that. And the fourth strategy, or the fourth way how mind control is delivered to us, is via the holographic inserts, holographically what we just discussed about what we said. What, Linda, did you say? The implant? The mind slide. Yes, yeah, the holographic insert. So let's go back now to the first one, which is the installation of this egoic predatory mindset, the negative ego. So if we look at the current culture, what do we see? We see division, yes. We see that a lot of victimization is going on. So we've got the divide and conquer strategy is rampant. Okay, we're all constantly divided. Political parties, this and that, this movement, that movement, constant division, constant. Let's just take a label and divide ourselves. Then we have victimization also is happening. All this kind of different schisms in how people relate to each other. There is always the winner. There is always a loser. There is always somebody who is better. There is always somebody who is worse. And this kind of like is not something that is holistic. It's not something as healthy. It's actually, again, based on division and competition, victim, victimizer. We have sexual abuse, which is going on. Again, tied in with the sexual misery program that Sonia was talking earlier, is the war between genders, that not many happy couples around, this is all deliberately done in order, again, to split and abuse sexual centers as much as possible, because it's an important part of our anatomy. It's an important part of our light body anatomy. Our sexuality carries within it a lot of power, and this is what is attacked. And of course, child abuse, child human trafficking, child abuse and satanic ritual abuse, not just for adults, but also of children. This is very horrific fact that is happening on Earth and has been happening, and we need to wake up to that. So these kind of like strategies are there, and in order to be perpetuated, we need to have some kind of belief system which will perpetuate our behavior in those kind of like division and abusive behaviors. So the programs that are being constantly programmed into our subconscious mind are specifically geared in order to bring those types of programs to us. And it starts from childhood, and it starts in a very subtle way, how these different polarities are being shown and programmed into us. For instance, if we look at division between rich and poor, so from a young age we learn that there are people who are rich and there are those who are poor, and we already assigned a certain, like if we are assigned a poverty, we're growing up in a fairly poor environment, so we're thinking, okay, now we are poor, so for the rest of my life I'm now in the box of poor and somebody there in the box of rich, and that creates one of those schisms that continue stopping us from going into and moving into another area of being rich. For instance, the thought forms for slave mentality, how these thought forms are being bombarded into us from a young age, and not just the thought forms, there's also trauma-based mind control. It could be any experience where you have a family where your parents aren't united, constantly fighting. So a child grows up feeling very unsafe. So that creates a trauma in the child, and that trauma creates certain behaviors that the child develops in order to protect himself. Sort of behaviors that perhaps work for a child, but when the child grows up, they become dysfunctional. So they become like defenses. And this is how the trauma-based mind control splits, prevents us from becoming and growing into our full potential, because we have all these different traumas that are unhealed, and we continue carrying them with us into our life, and perpetuate that in our relationships. So I am just trying to say, so anything you, Sonia and Linda, do you want to add something to this or chime in with the thought forms, this kind of slave mentality mindset, this kind of like thought form, everything that is done on our subconscious level, and pain body and our personality level?
Yes, the subconscious, it's like patterns of behaviour. So our subconscious is programmed from a young age. So yeah, thanks for that description. It was really helpful to hear all that, because it's explaining how these patterns of behaviour are then learned, and then we just keep perpetuating these behaviour. From our, I think it's called ego defense, like mechanisms that we learn. And so, this ego defenses, there are little programs that are running around, from our trauma, as you described. For me, having such a sort of tyrannical, I was very scared of my father. And so, that affected a lot of my relationships, because subconsciously, until I healed that part of myself, which is still ongoing, obviously, we're all a work in progress. That subconscious, like, because it's like an opportunity to actually say, okay, I can see this program running, I'm being attracted over and over again to this certain type of person that is like my father. So it's and then you can sort of take that out to the external world. It's like, well, how are you sort of going around with these patterns of behavior. It's like, yeah.
Yes,
I
yes.
think that, what I'm sort of trying to describe. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, very good example. Sonia, do you have any examples on these patterns of behavior from childhood, but which then affect your life and put you in this kind of perpetual drama that
Well,
is being played?
yeah, I touched upon that a lot in the Sexual Misery Program podcast, for sure. It's important. It's like, I think, Linda, that was an excellent example. I think what you gave is an example of trauma-based mind control. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
that what we experience, we are conditioned, and as you mentioned, Trinity, we're conditioned as children as young as possible. So it's conditioning. It's coloring our perceptions so that when we grow up into adults, like you explained, Linda, you're kind of attracting that. You are attracting the same sort of relationship, the same sort of unhealed trauma. It's like you're a magnet for that. And until that heals, that is our perception, that is our reality. So yeah, just reiterating that that's a form of mind control, trauma-based mind control that can be cleared and healed. But for now, I won't give an example on that. I'm gonna wait.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sonia. It really is quite deep how it's done, because when we're young, we're very susceptible. We're like sponges. So if the child observes certain behaviors of the parents, any trauma that is happening before the age 7, the child has absorbed that. It's gone very deep, and these patterns then will continue. They will show again during puberty, and that would be a chance for the child to either heal them, or they will be entrenched deeper. And then by the time we are 18, the job is done. We are conditioned now to continuously repeat what we have absorbed in those times. And negative alien agenda, and those off-planet and on-planet beings who perpetuate that, they know that. And that's why most of the mind control is our children are targeted with most of mind control via the Hollywood movies with their subliminal messaging, everything that they do. In schools, it's all it's very subtle, because if you look on the surface, you'll see, well, the teachers and everybody who is in education, they're doing their best. We're not here to judge anybody. We're just saying that it is a very insidious, invisible, dark agenda that promotes certain attitudes, behaviors, and thought patterns in children from a very young age. And if we look at our structure, Linda touched a little bit on that before, on the light body anatomy, but it's actually a known fact that we obviously have instinctual mind, we have subconscious, unconscious mind, and we have conscious mind. So if we look at our first 3 layers, or those who are new age and know a little bit about chakra, if we look at our first, second, and third chakra, then these programs are targeted specifically at each chakra. So if we look at the first layer, which is the unconscious mind, then we have the false parent programming. And this is where all these traumas in childhood, with parents fighting or not being safe, or, parents are not fulfilling emotional needs of the child, or whatever it is, because everybody's damaged. We're all damaged. So there are no perfect parents. So they will be obviously continuing with their trauma, passing it on to their child. So on the instinctual, on the first layer, which is our subconscious and conscious mind, this is where this false parent will be written, that program. And then on the second layer, which is our instinctual mind, we have sexual misery. Surprise, surprise, this is our sexual center, and the sexual misery programming with this misogyny, when there is this patriarchal dominion type of program that the females are still quite repressed and oppressed by the patriarchal males. So, and a lot of abuses are still taking place, domestic abuses. So this is all second chakra. And on the third layer, we have conscious mind. And on the conscious mind, we have this constant fear, pumping of fear, Armageddon, something's going to happen, fear, fear, fear this, fear that, fear weather, constantly kept in that kind of fear-mongering programming. So we constantly operate. So the purpose of mind control, to keep us constantly locked in these three centers and not allowing us to raise onto our heart level, because on the heart level is power, on the heart level is unity. And also a lot of us have broken hearts because the planet had a broken heart. What happened on the planet. We'll go into that again in the future podcast, a bit on the history of the planet, but the planet also has the heart and the brain and the organs like we do. And the planet's heart was invaded, the planet's brain was invaded. And of course, each person born on the planet will have that schism as well. And negative alien agenda capitalizes on that. So it's quite deep, but the good news is, once we know it, like Sonia said, it's not gloom and doom. It's knowing it, and then with the knowledge and with the courage, looking and healing these programs within ourselves. And that's what we are doing. That's what we are doing. And a lot of our listeners are probably doing it, I'm sure. We're sure. And ES members are doing it. We're all in this. So Sonia, Linda, anything to chime on that?
Well, I was thinking that you make some great points, Trinity. And when a couple of things came to mind. And I'm not sure if this is the correct part in your podcast. Redirect me, because I don't know, you've got things planned for us, and then I'll wait. But quickly, I wanted to mention the second chakra that you were talking about, and how the women on the planet, the men on the planet, we are in these dysfunctional roles that we're playing out. Women feel powerless, not everybody, but women are playing that role. Men are carrying around false king of tyranny, not all men, but there's this division of the sexes. And in reality, just to touch upon this real quick again, is that both men and women have both a sacred feminine and a sacred masculine aspect within their light body, and they don't know this about themselves. So when I say this information, it's not to point fingers and to blame at all. What I'm trying to point out is that we have this issue in society where there is the very real issue of this splitting and the dysfunctional behaviors, and people not knowing who they really are as divine humans, the diamond sun humans. And I'm simply just pointing that part out because when you had mentioned it, Trinity, it's something that we need to look at to come back into wholeness, because when we're behaving in these ways of less than, when we're behaving in these lower chakras, we are, we get to a point where we are reinforcing our own enslavement, when we're believing these lies about ourselves, when we believe that we're powerless, or if we're acting out these false king of tyranny roles. And you could be a woman acting out false king of tyranny roles. You can be a man acting out the dark mother roles. This is what I'm trying to explain. So if wherever you're at whatever gender you are, there's no judgment in that. It's simply pointing out that those are illusions. And that tends to be the reptilian predator mindset that has been downloaded to people. That is not diamond sun human at all. Just wanted to point that out. It's not. And so if we are running those programs and believing that about ourselves, whether we are running false king of tyranny and we are, you know, treating the sacred feminine as something to be purchased and, you know, a commodity and a sex slave, or if we are a woman who is seducing men and, you know, running other dark mother programs and feeling like we are a people pleaser, sex slave, that kind of thing. Okay, just know that that is not Diamond Sun. That's something that's been downloaded, and we need to heal that.
Well, Sonia, fantastic, very well said. You kind of said it very beautifully, because this is exactly that it's not us, it's a program which has been downloaded, and it's got a name. Yes, it's got, like, you know, victimizer, or, you know, what we've just talked about, these names of these programs that they have, but it's actually a program of negative ego, service to self. Yes, it's not us, and it compels us to behave in a certain way. It's almost like we develop certain personality traits that are not actually who we are, but we develop them in response to the trauma that is being targeted. You know, we have been targeted, or this trauma has been aimed at us from a very young age. How many of us grew up in a happy family? I mean, how many of us? I mean, I could say from my example, I saw my parents arguing, and as a child, I was like, right, if I ever have a relationship, I'm not going to let this happen. So what, I'll just won't stay. I'll just go. It didn't teach me how to resolve conflict. As a child, I made a decision that if I ever argue with my partner, I'll leave. And that didn't get me. I didn't have a very good record of relationship. I didn't have a very happy relationship, because this is what I learned as a child, and I was continuing that program that you see, this is a program. It's not who I were. It's not who I was. It wasn't my true nature. And we all have these little programs that we perpetuate. And this is exactly what Sonia said. We need to remember that our core is the Diamond Sun. They're beautiful spiritual beings that are here. So that's very, very good. Thank you, Sonia, on that. So just so that we don't spend too long on this, because we've got another, we need to continue. So anything else, Linda, anything to add just before we summarize on this particular way, how the mind control is delivered to us via installation of these egoic programs, archetypes?
Yeah, I'd say when you look at, say, the government or society, for example, it's narcissist comes to mind. It's very narcissistic, you know, and then they set us up to be like little codependents, and then, you know, that plays out relationships. You know, there's often a codependent or a narcissist. So, you know, it's just being aware of this, like that trauma-based mind control, because that's where it's going to affect us over and over again.
Yes.
Until we are ready to, you know, deal with our, you know, it's looking at it from a whole multi-dimensional aspect. You know, it's our personality matrix. You know, then it's like, you know, we have to get our spirit on board. We've got to heal our hearts. You know, it's bringing in all these dynamics, but just to know that, you know, once you know the truth about how you know, you've got all these things to look at, and then, you know, get down to the nitty gritty and start healing yourself. That respect is just, you know, it just is a snowball effect, I think, you know, when it comes to our relationships, and then we're able to sort of become less service to self and service to others. You know, you can just see how, you know, just having that loving kindness towards yourself, you know, you just then start having that loving kindness towards others. And that's just, when you start waking up, it's like, wow, it's empowering, and it really, yeah, I think it's all about empowerment at the end of the day now. It's like people are waking up to mind control and everything that's been going on this year. You know, I'm just talking to lots of normal people, and they're just like, something's going on here, something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, and this is the thing, it's always not to be looking at the external stuff, you know, it's as within, as without, you know, we have to always keep looking within.
Yes.
You know, if we're going to heal the world, we've got to heal ourselves first.
Yes.
Excellent. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic point. Fantastic point. So that was actually a very good summary from you, Linda. Thank you. I just want to add to our listeners, look at some archetypes, you know, on websites, you know, have a look, you know, because these archetypes will give, you know, they're very good to work with, to give us a clue what program is operating within us. For instance, master, slave, servant, you know, rescuer, savior, martyr, you know, all this kind of like mediator. There are many archetypes, and good to remember that these archetypes, they are just programs, and some of them are, you know, they all have the light and the shadow in the, and the light is what we were meant to come and experience in a polarity system. It's just like the light, okay, what it's like to experience this and that. But when it becomes a dark, when it becomes negative, then it becomes selfish, service to self, it becomes a dark archetype. So it's good to, I personally try to watch myself all the time, and I ask myself, what archetype am I coming from? Who is speaking? Who is writing this email? You know, sometimes I feel like I have to respond very quickly, and I'm, oh, that's my mater. Okay, where is my mater coming from? Oh, my mater is coming from my childhood because I wasn't given enough validation. So I'm seeking validation externally. So I feel like if I don't respond quickly, people are not going to like me. See, so this is how this program works. And if I'm constantly hooked on that, then I always seeking external validation from somewhere else. And this is it. I'm lost in the matrix. I'm lost in the program. Instead of retracting and reminding myself, actually, it's just a program. I'm an eternal being. I am here to experience what it feels like to have this. Yeah. Anything on that?
That's an important point. Yeah. Well, I'll mention it at the end. Please remind me about the being the observer, compassionate witness.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Having that self-observation, the observing part of us, the witnessing part, which is connected to our soul. The soul just witnesses. The archetypes are there to play the drama, but the soul will just witness. So it's a good practice to start sort of standing back and having that sort of soul perspective to this.
Do you think that it is appropriate to talk for a minute? Because the Truth Pulse is about authenticity. We're about being real.
Yes, it is. It is. yeah.
So would it be appropriate to mention for a moment what we went through before we came on today? Because it's a perfect example of the mini little chaos that happened, and then how we beautifully pulled it together and did a little centering and came back into 0 point. Because like you both mentioned, and Linda, you at the end, you said, if we can remind you, you're going to teach us about being the observer, because we are observing the chaos. That's not who we are observing it. But that's maybe a nice little story if you wanted to tell Trinity what happened.
Would you yeah, I think because I was too much in it, I was part of it, I was like in and out, so I wasn't really
So in a nutshell, what happened, and it's a quick little story. The three of us came together, and our routine is we come and we discuss little components before we push the record button, you know, of what we're going to discuss, etc. And we're getting, you know, everything settled and situated, and suddenly Trinity's internet connection cuts off, and we're pushing buttons. Where's Trinity? Where's Trinity? And we couldn't see her. And previously as well, we did a personal share, which is part of our coming together in the beginning, because we like to do a little bit of shadow clearing, what has happened during the week, etc. And Trinity was talking about some situations, you know, and that's up to you, Trinity, if you want to talk about that. But it was some deep sharing, some raw experiences, and I think it was a cathartic expression and clearing for all of us, because it was sharing raw emotions, and it really was like, wow, I didn't know that about you, Trinity. And you also shared how you were able to bring yourself out of that, and you gave us tips on how it is that you've healed from that. It was very powerful what you shared. And that was basically around the time when we were ready to push record, boop, your internet connection went out. And we're talking about how we're being watched right now. Anybody who does disclosure work, session work, if you are, let's say, an Ascension guide, that kind of line of work, the entities are watching. You can explain it in your own words, Trinity, but I also heard you say it, that you think that possibly there was some interference there. Somebody was not happy about what you shared, in my opinion. The beautiful share that you were powerful. You're like this, you were empowered when you talked about it. And I think that it offended somebody's who, this is what we're talking about, the mind control, we're talking about possession, we're talking about lodgers in our light field, where we're giving the boot to, you know, get your own connection to God force. You don't need to parasitize people. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about single soul occupancy. And when you come forward with your empowerment like that, it's like, And so there goes the internet connection, and you were offline for quite a while. And the ending part is you came back on, and you just got down to business. You're like, okay, let's still do this, because we asked you, are you okay? You want to still continue? Because you're trying to get things back in order. You're like, I'm here trying to host Mind Control podcast today, and I just got my internet cut off. But you came back on, and you were centered, and we did a little share right before we pushed record. We got ourselves back into unity consciousness, to 0 point, and what matters is authenticity. What matters is love. And, you know, like you said, Linda, we're trying to observe the events. And that's basically what happened in a nutshell. Now, if either of you have something to share on that.
Well, I could just say that it's interesting because, yes, strangely, but I was quite calm. And I think because I was calm and I was just like, with my cool head, it doesn't happen often. I sometimes go into panic. But this time I thought, okay, what will be, will be. Let's just try different tactics. Let's just try to see what I can do. So I just calmly went for one thing after another, trying to fix it. And then finally, whatever fix I applied, it worked. But I think the reason it happened like this is because obviously my calmness. So I was able to somehow engage that observer that Linda gonna tell us a little bit at the end. And I think the reason I was able to have the observer is because somehow I felt that the field that we've created here was holding that observer space. It was almost like a space where you let go of the result. So I was able to say, okay, what will be, will be. So I wasn't pushing, oh my God, we've got to get in, we've got to push, we've got to get it out. I didn't have that. I had a very, almost like a Zen mind. It's just like, okay, I surrender, whatever will be, let's just try this and that. Worst case scenario, we do it next week or sometime. And somehow this kind of non-attached attitude, I think, is kind of like observer, neutral 0 point, somehow managed to get us back online. So I think maybe it's something to do with attachment to a specific result and pushing for it. That's my thoughts. I don't know. It worked. So thank you, Sonia, for bringing it up and sharing it with the listeners, because I'm sure they probably will experience similar similar things. Anything from you, Linda?
No.
No? Okay, so this is a little bit on this predatory mindset, this kind of programming that is done into our unconscious and instinctual and conscious mind, and to be mindful of archetypes, and also be mindful about self-healing and looking at our own personal programs and endeavoring to heal them. Like Linda said, we need to heal from inside, because we don't want to go into the victim, which will say, oh, I have been attacked, or they are doing this to me, or, you know, this is again in some ways putting us into victim. It's good to assess the situation, but then also look within. The change within will bring the change without. So this is the final say on that.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the second way how the mind control is delivered, and here we have good old media. You know, this is it. The media, the entertainment industry, the visual, everything that we visually perceive, everything that we perceive with our ears. This is how the mind control can be carried via electromagnetic spectrum. Everything is electromagnetic. Everything is a frequency. We know that, okay? So certain programs, certain frequencies could be inserted and programmed and carried to our visual and auditory domain. And this is how the digital TV works, and how those who in the know, they know how to use something which is called Sigil Magic, and how to apply Sigil Magic as symbology so that our subconscious will be very susceptible and absorb all that. So they do it very successfully, and we will put some links so you could have a look at some videos. It's called Sigil Magic TV, where you will see how everything is done in order to perpetuate the hypnotic state in which we could become programmed. So the programming is very effective when we are hypnotized, because it goes very deep and we don't remember we've been programmed, and then suddenly we are like robots. I need to buy this bread because yesterday I saw it on TV, I don't even remember. It's something like that. So advertisement works on that. They all know about this programming. That's why when you go to Tesco or anywhere you want to go and you smell something very nice, and you remember your grandma's cookies, and you buy a lot of things, okay? Shops know this, and they capitalize on the fact that the sense of smell goes directly into your hippocampus, and you remember all these things. It bypasses your thalamus, or I don't remember this, but it basically goes directly to your emotional center, and you become very emotional and cozy, and makes you feel nice, and you want to go to the shop again. So this is one example how it's done. But why the sense of smell? But let's go back to TV. On TV, all these kind of symbols, all these different sounds, they are all very hypnotic, and they are done in order to put us in some kind of alpha state. Alpha state is kind of like on between kind of relaxed state and between our conscious waking state, which is the beta state. So our brain waves need to get into slightly more kind of relaxed hypnotic alpha state before we can start receiving the downloads that are being constantly bombarded to us via these symbols. So the symbols that are generally used on TV are all based on some ancient magic, Solomon keys maybe, some kind of other symbology. It's not just random symbols that we get through our advertising. It's all done specifically geared at our subconscious in order to receive this programming, to receive this narrative, and to also energize it as well. We are energizing, and we are also in some way subliminally consenting, because our subconscious is very difficult to lie to. Our conscious mind could be deceived very easily, but our subconscious mind is very difficult to deceive. So something has to be done so that all this subliminal messaging is going into their subconscious and telling us. So on TV, they almost like telling us what they are doing, but it's going into our subconscious. Our conscious mind is not registering it. And that's why our conscious mind is like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. They're not lying to me because my subconscious mind has been told that, but I don't know how to read my subconscious. Does it make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
when
all
people
based.
start looking, yeah, when people become aware of the symbols and sigils that you mentioned, you know, I'll never forget when I started to become aware of it. It's just gobsmacking. And it just becomes more and more blatant. I mean, have you seen the children's T-shirts at the moment of pizzas? They have slices of pizza. You know what pizza means? It's sex with children. You know, that's what all the pedos used. It means sex with children. Pizza is their code word.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There are some code words that are used in this kind of abuses for children. They're coded, and pizza is one of them. There are other symbols and words.
And so now, you know, like they'll have their theme. When was it? A couple of years ago, it was unicorns. You know, for example, and now, you know, or they have skull and crossbones. That was what, you know, they often do, is skull and crossbones, which is like the death symbol, and a satanic symbol, Illuminati. So now it's pizzas, and they've got these catchphrases, you know, on children's T-shirts, and you know, for people that are completely unaware, but for us that are just like looking at it gobsmacked, going, that is just so blatant. It's just.
Yes, this is a good example. Sonia, do you want to say anything?
No, you basically both answered my question. I was going to ask you, I mean, those are some actual symbols that you can see that they are, I would say, programming the black magic to, right? And programming the subconscious minds of people. My question was for both of you was going to be, now these symbols that you see on TV, I guess it could be ones that you can actually see in a commercial, you know, like a slice of pizza, but isn't it also they are flashing the symbols so quickly that it's your subconscious mind that's picking it up, it's not your physical eye? Aren't they also doing that?
Yes, absolutely. They are doing everything to induce the hypnotic effect, and it's known that the hypnotic effect is induced when you're showing something which is spinning, you know, you become spinning, or the countdown, you know, all these different hypnotic techniques that are used to hypnotize. Usually they are all done before like some program comes in or something, everything very spinning, you know, the news come in on the background, there is something is spinning, the you know, the sound, the noise, everything is on a kind of specific frequency range in order to put us into the alpha state. So we're kind of like, we're like this, and while we are like this for 5 seconds, we are uploading all this into our subconscious. And then of course, during the night, it will then start seeping into our conscious, and we become what they want to, whatever programming was sent into us, we become. Do you see? If we are not practicing mindfulness, if we are not questioning, where are my thoughts coming from? Why do I feel, you know, whatever, like I want to argue today? Why do I feel this? Why do I think these negative thoughts today? If we are not asking ourselves these questions, then of course these thoughts are being put into our head through the mind, through this subliminal messaging. And Sonia, you're right, it's not just TV, it's everywhere. Every newspaper, every headline, every, you know, logos, look at logos. Why the logos have this specific symbology on them? Look at them. I mean, not all logos, but most of them will have some magic, sigil magic in that, which we are energizing each time we're looking at it. and also consenting to. Do you see how subtle that is?
Mm.
Because we are mind controlled and we don't know this is what's going on, we are energizing this, and we are also consenting to it, because we're not, we're not seeing it with our eyes of awareness. We're not seeing it with our eyes of truth, because we don't know, we're deceived. And it's very easy to then mind control us even more. So yes, so this is part of the electromagnetic mind control and the media manipulation. And there are, we're going to put some links for you to have a look at that. As interesting research has been done on that, and there is a very interesting video in there on specifically how they do it with TV magic. So what else we have here? Obviously, we also have this phenomena which is called targeted individuals. So this is electronic harassment. So there is a group of individuals, and it's growing because more people are coming up now, and usually they're quite isolated because they can't talk to their families. Nobody understands them. People laugh, what were you talking about? But actually, there are groups of population that has been singled out in order to experiment on by our government and those who are at the top echelons. This sort of electronic, it's known as an electronic harassment, where people have all these different states that are induced on them, different burning marks, anything that is possible to be done in order to induce some kind of effects by messing with our brains electromagnetically. So delivering some frequencies to our brain remotely, from somewhere. So it could be also done through our phone devices, through our computers, through any electronic device it can be done. But this is a specific one. These are kind of targeted individuals. They are specifically targeted. Not every person, not every it's not like everybody is targeted specifically. It's a specific group that has been singled out for whatever reason, that they become targeted, and it's horrible what they go through. So if you're one of those targeted individuals, then know that there are groups you can join, and you're not the only one, and there are people who understand what's happening. And if one of your family is being targeted like this, next time they talk to you, try to really understand that it's actually a reality that is happening. It's very difficult to believe that our government would be doing such things, including the military and the cabal, But they do because they want control. They want what they want. So there are no morals in there. There are no ethics. There's nothing. They talk about ethics, but they preach, but they don't practice it. I'm just trying to see if there is anything on electronic harassment to say here. Basically, electronic harassment is about redirection of our central nervous system somehow. It's confusing our synapses in the brain. It's confusing our brain signals. It's reversing pain and pleasure. I had it done on me. My pain and pleasure centers have been reversed from childhood, where you perceive something which is supposed to be pleasurable. Because of the trauma-based mind control, I've been conditioned to see it as pain. For instance, I give example. Well, for instance, food, like like binging or overeating, or because as a child I was very unhappy. So I remember, like, if I'm unhappy, my only happiness and content will be maybe going and having, like, stuffing myself with like hundreds of sweets, and then of course I suffer at the end. But I've been conditioned that it's actually pleasure for me somehow. It's kind of perverted pleasure I'm getting from it. It's not healthy. I'm damaging myself, but somehow I feel that this is good for me, and it's somehow I derive some kind of pleasure. You see, this is kind of like a reversal pleasure from hurting myself. I don't know if you have any examples on that, but I have another example as well I could give. Do you have any examples? Pleasure, pain reversals.
I can't think of any.
Sexual misery is based on that. Sexual misery programming is pleasure, play, and reversal, like you know, having all these dramas to do with your first love, you know, all that sort of thing, where you have to almost suffer for your first love. And I mean, why do you need to suffer? It's nice, it's joyful. No, it has to be suffering. And then you learn that love is associated with suffering. Yeah.
The drama, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Been there, done that.
It's not, I mean, sometimes it's good to explore things when you're a teenager and kind of, yes, you have to learn your emotional and stuff. But I think in my case specifically, it was very, it was a specific reversal. I remember I could actually remember when it was done. It was reversing something in me so that I see love as something painful, something that I shouldn't even go to, I shouldn't even try to, I shouldn't even endeavor to ever have a relationship because it's so painful and it always ends in disaster. That's kind of programming example of reversal that I had to actually consciously reprogram myself in order to then have a good relationship. I couldn't, you know, some people have also various reversals where they feel that they can only be sexually aroused if their partner is not accessible to them. This is a reversal, because in ideal, you know, the normal balanced scenario is that you get aroused if you have your partner who is loving you. This is how it's supposed to be. But in you know, with some people, the reversal is that only when the partner is inaccessible, then there is the attraction and the arousal. See, this is how twisted is that?
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Linda?
Yeah, I was thinking about the sexual misery, how, yeah, I suppose that belongs with our other podcasts, really. But yeah, that's a big mind control thing. You know, it's just, you know, from such a young age, it's like, yeah, I've got to be sexy. You know, I've got to have all this makeup on. You know, it's just, it's. I think it's subliminal completely. You know, by the time you're a teenager, that you've got to look a certain way. You know, unless you start rebelling, which I mean, I did to a certain extent. You know. But still having that sort of seducer archetype was just huge for me. You know, just really, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was in my mind controlled status in these relationships, and, you know, with the sexual misery programming, and, you know, just completely disconnected from my heart center and God source, and just into the nasty thick of it all. You just lose yourself, and then you know you're with these partners who are matching that. So there's this dysfunctional dynamic going on within the relationship, and with the possession that happens, we're downloading the predator mindset. Okay, this isn't the Diamond Sun human blueprint. We're downloading this predator mindset. And when we were talking about reversals of the pleasure pain centers, I remember a few times in relationships whereby the you know, coming together with my partner wasn't ever a loving union. It wasn't about this sweet love experience from the heart that you feel for one another, and, you know, cuddling and loving experience. It was this reversal experience of non-love there was no love in the act of coming together. There was no love. There was only lust, and there was even some, I would say, aggressive or harmful, how can I say, actions within the act. Okay, do you get my meaning? Like just harming the body, or just how else can I explain it? It's the act of harming the body parts, or harming harmful emotions, everything, the full package. To me, that is the reversal pleasure pain centers, because it's like, and to me again, I will say that it is the predator mindset. The entities, as we've talked about, they don't have a connection in with the heart center, the heart of God. They're not inner sustained. And the sexual energies that they are collecting, okay, the loosh, this is a food source for them. And it's all about, it's satanic. Satanic is anti-life. It's anti-love. It's anti-human. So if you put all of that together in trying to explain what I'm trying to say, that's what it is. I don't know if I was clear. Was I clear in?
Yes, very
what I'm
clear.
trying to say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
This is exactly that. It's the reversal of something that is supposed to be healthy, wholesome, pleasurable, something that we all have our birthright as the keepers of this beautiful library that we're supposed to be on this earth, this living library, this beauty. And we as human race supposed to be the gatekeepers, the guardians of this, and enjoying this in unified cooperation and love together, creating and existing here. This is how it's supposed to be, versus this constant drama, suffering, disappointment, pain, constantly with the things like love, things like food, for instance, having reversal on food. These are all reversals that are done and sort of entrenching in us, again, for teenage years, for young years, growing up. So yeah, exactly. This is exactly. Thank you, Sonia and Linda, for sharing. Very good examples. I just want to quickly share, because we are on electromagnetic mind control. When I started researching on mind control, things started coming to me, memories started coming, and it's very interesting that when I started school in Ukraine, in Kiev, where I grew up, in 1976, the school years, the 10 years of my school were probably the most humiliating, unhappy, and if you talk about reversals and trauma, mind control, that probably was done in school, okay? And only as I was doing my research, I realized that I've learned that in July 1976, near Kiev, the government decided to install the technology which was pulsing some very low frequency electromagnetic waves, and they had 3 places where they did it, and one of them was near Kiev. And it's very interesting that that low electromagnetic spectrum possibly was somehow connected to my school, because at some point in my school, when perestroika started happening, we had a very mysterious fire, and I wonder why that fire, what was that fire burning? And it could be that maybe potentially, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but there may be some connection with that, they, after Chernobyl happened, that station has been dysfunctional, and that was around that time when I was at school, and that's when we had our fire around. I may be wrong, I don't know, I'm just trying to piece things together, but what I'm trying to say here is that I remember when I was at school, I had such a horrible sense of fear, and it wasn't just fear like normal fear that you go, it was the fear that felt like I was pinged into that fear. I was like fixated. The fear was like, it was almost like something in my brain the fear of authority. Obey authority. Do not speak. Do not question. Obey. And I wonder whether the government was pulsing those frequencies in Ukraine at the time. They had one in Latvia, one in Ukraine, and one somewhere in the east, Siberia or somewhere in there. But it was interesting that they were pulsing these frequencies, and I distinctly remember school being associated with, and also like the family started breaking down as well soon after, not straight away. So I just wanted, the program was called a woodpecker. So if you want to Google that, I think I can give a link in there. You can have a look. It's a woodpecker program that Russians were testing at the time on their own people.
Well, now one question about what you had said is, when they are pulsating these, you would say electromagnetic frequencies, extremely low frequencies. Is
Very
that
low, yes.
Very low.
Yes.
So for our listeners and for me, because I'm still learning about this, but this isn't something that we can actually hear, right? And that's the point of it being so low, right?
Yes. We can't hear them. Well, I don't think we can hear them on an audible. You could detect them, and it's like, that's called woodpecker. It's like pulsing, like like this, but it's got a specific coding. It had a specific coding that that you can basically encode, because every signal, every information, every electromagnetic wave will carry some kind of information, like radio waves. They carry information, they carry music, yes? So you can encode information on it. So if they were encoding something like obey authority, fear frequency, because fear has a frequency, obedience has a frequency, yes? All these kind of states, they have frequency. So if they were encoding that and pulsing that into the population, no wonder that we were very obedient. And I know for a fact that my classmates, all those, like my generation, we are very obedient, we are hardworking, we're very quiet, we don't rebel. And when I look at the younger generation, so this was disabled in 1984, this pulsing in Kiev. I don't know about anything. I can only speak about Kiev, okay? So when I look at younger generation, they don't have the same fear, the same obedience. They are more courageous. They are more willing to speak. We were very repressed, very suppressed. Do not speak. Do not challenge authority. Obey authority. Obey. And this is kind of my generation. So yeah, that's.
So they are able to encode these extremely low frequencies somehow.
Yes.
And it would be like, when you were saying that, it would be like, you know how we can encode water? Like you can program water. Maybe some of the listeners don't realize this, but liquids, water, you can put words of like love and, just say, I love you, water, I love you, or put crystals that have been programmed next to your water glass or whatever. But I mean, you can program water. So somehow they're able to also program these extremely low frequencies. I don't know how they're doing it, but is it something like how you program water?
Yes, it's how they program TV as well. It's how they program anything. It's how they program YouTube. It's everything that we receive via the waves, via the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Via the wave frequency can be programmed. The program can be written to match a specific frequency, and our brain will receive that. You see, because our brain is electromagnetic. We've got electric activity going on in the brain. So the brain will, and our brain likes to synchronize itself, with this specific frequency. So once the brain synchronizes itself, then it starts taking on that frequency. And that's why you go to shop, you see all these different headlights, fear, 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 somebody killed there, somebody killed, disaster in there. Your brain takes all this, you come out, you're depressed because your brain has received that bombardment of those frequencies that you quickly looked at the headlights or heard them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, the mind control techniques are very, you know, there are specific techniques like repetition. Why are we getting now in every shop we go, we say, maintain social distancing, be kind to each other, you know, keep each other safe. You know, this is brainwashing, outright brainwashing, Pavlovian conditioning in the shops constantly. I mean, you repeat it many times and it'll entrench itself into my brain, and then it will become a new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go.
They do that with my supermarket. I'll go to the supermarket and they have a recording that they play, and
Same here.
they say, please wear your mask. And they have this spiel that they play probably maybe every 15-20 minutes. I ignore it every single time. And
this is
there are
classical.
people, like you said, Trinity, there are people that are it's just in training them, they're like, you know, yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted, but it's a classical conditioning. It's a typical classical repetition, and it'll go, and it'll become a norm if we are not mindful. If we are mindful, it's not going to work, but we need to be mindful. If we are just like, and it's also effective because we are shopping, we are not really actively listening, and it's playing on the background, going into our subconscious. So again, I will advise our listeners to really do some kind of energetic shielding technique each time they leave their house. And we have a 12D shield that we practice, and we have it, I think we have it somewhere in the link people could look at, but find your own, anything energetic you can find to protect yourself energetically with your intention would be very good. Anything on that before we move on? I think we'll round up on electromagnetic frequencies for now. Anything more? No? No? Okay. So biochemical warfare, we will go into a bit more details on podcast 3. We will dedicate the whole podcast because it's important. It's about various issues to do with geoengineering or chemtrailing, various chemicals and various kind of, big pharma industry, the vaccinations, food industry, everything that is done in order to chemically compromise our biological system. And again, children are targeted big way. And there is a big movement even about anti-vaccination movement in America. So we will dedicate the whole podcast on that. So I suppose probably we'll skip that for today and go to the etheric mind control implants. So let's talk a little bit about the etheric mind control implants. So we have nano chips that inserted into people without their consent, and this comes with probably electromagnetic kind of devices, but it could also come a little bit under here as well, that there are specific very, very tiny chips that could be implanted into us. And actually a lot of abductees, those who've been abducted by extraterrestrials, they report that, they may have been implanted, because once we are implanted with these microchips, then it's very easy to exert influence upon us. I personally don't know if I have been implanted. I definitely don't remember that being done, but in my dream space, I often see entities who take samples from various parts of my body, and I don't even know how they do it. So they do some kind of memory wipe on me so that I see them. They telepathically transmit to me that they are there to take some samples, and the next time I know, it's a different scene and they're gone, or it's all done and they're there and they're gone. So I'm not quite sure, but what I'm trying to say is that there is something in me which enables them to do that. There's something in me which enables them to telepathically influence me like this. So that could be some maybe etheric implant, not necessarily a microchip, but it could be an etheric implant. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out what it is. I'm just learning and researching and observing what's going on. But both could be the case. Because missing time is something, missing time and memory wiping is, most abductees report that. So would you like to chime something on these? I've got like a list here. We've got SP, parasites, we've got mind slides, holographic inserts. Any experiences, do you have any experiences you can share with any of the holographic inserts?
I was just thinking how, you know, this is without our consent. The implants are inserted. You know, we can get attached to them, or they attach to us unawares, and, you know, as you mentioned, through sleep state, but in our waking state as well. And what's coming to mind is like these SPEs. I had an experience where there was one in my brain. And energetically, it just felt like it feels like a blockage. It just feels like, you know, there's something with tentacles in there, and it just feels metallic, and it just feels like it's inorganic. And, you know, these SPs, I think they're like it's like a suppressing, it's like a suppressor parasite. And I think, yeah, it took about 6 months of, you know, like just sort of raising, like you mentioned, this frequency. I think becoming aware of, you know, so, okay, so what is this? You know, how does it work? And then sort of coming to an understanding of how, you know, the more, you know, sort of the organic thoughts that you want, or you're trying to raise your frequency, coming out of a negative mindset, as like, that's what the SPEs do. It's like a clamp down. It's like a, you know, it's like a sort of control mechanism. So, you know, yeah, this is definitely one of these implants. So I would feel more and more as if like it was inorganic to that part of me that was trying to break free from it, you know. So that's when I'll explain, you know, about this observer consciousness that comes in. So, you know, once you become aware of all these different factors, then the grip starts to loosen until eventually it's just like you can remove it. It's just no longer there. So yeah, that was an experience of mine, and it can be quite uncomfortable when it is removed, but afterwards it's such a relief, because your thoughts actually just start being, you know, less controlled. You actually feel less mind controlled when these are removed from you.
Thank you, Linda.
It's empowering.
Thank you for sharing that. I just want to maybe tell our listeners who don't know, I actually have it handy here, the definition of SPE, so I might as well. So basically SPE as a suppressor parasite entity. Suppressor parasite entity, it's a genetic artificial intelligence drones or archons sent by higher ups in the negative alien agenda, or those entities that source from imposter spirit and are a type of militarized AI to dominate and possess consciousness through mind control and through projection. So this is kind of definition from Ascension glossary. I've taken that. But it's interesting that it's AI, yes, like what you said. It's artificial, it's non-organic, and it is specifically programmed and sent from, again, you could have energetically, etherically, it's not necessarily physical. It's not necessarily physical. It's again, and this is the difficulty. We need to start sort of upping our game a little bit and understanding that we are dealing with a holographic, energetic phenomenon in here. So and kind of try, and our imagination is the bridge. So imagining and visualizing things, visualizing the shield, visualizing this is what is helpful, because it's almost like an inner vision, inner third eye, if you call it, but it's like an inner vision. It's like you close your eyes and you see something in your inner vision, but it's important to be aware of it. So thank you, Linda. Thank you for that. But I think all of us probably have these suppressor parasites, and it's like you said, it took you 6 months. It's ongoing for me. It's constant. It's ongoing. It's like constantly trying to cleanse and sort of maintaining the balance. They thrive on acid. They thrive on this kind of like acidic type of environment, because acidic environment creates a certain electromagnetic kind of like spectrum.
Yes, they thrive on frequencies, you know, so
yes.
you know, you won't be able to remove like etheric implants. I mean, over the years, this is well before I joined ES, and you know, I'm healing someone, and then I see this sort of black, dark mass, dense objects, you know, and they would look different, you know. Some would be spiky, some would have tentacles, and you know, they would have different frequencies, you know, when we have different etheric implants. So you know, there would be an implant latched into the mental body, so it feeds off, and it also it makes you keep in that, within that frequency. So you know, if you've got like mental body looping, for example, you know, these negative thoughts constantly, the implants encourages it, you know. So or you have an emotional body, you know, implant, you know, within your stomach, for example, you know, and it's not to be scared, you know. Once you're aware of them, then you know, it's just all about empowerment. It's all about saying, you know, these exist, and you know, it's just work on clearing them, as you mentioned. It's just whether it's in our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual body. It's once you know, you start focusing on your heart and your frequency, you know, keep observing coming out of this free frequency, coming out of hate, coming out of any negative mindset, you know, they actually can just fall away, because there's nothing there more for them to feed on, and they can't exist within a higher frequency. You know, they like to exist, you know, where they belong, which is, you know, this sort of dense negative energy.
Well said, Linda. Absolutely, absolutely. And they're probably the most widely spread ones that we probably all have on us, and because it's linked to neurological warfare, because if our immune system is compromised via the geoengineering, via the, you know, the food industry, the pharma, you know, all that. If our immune system is compromised, then of course they're going to be thriving on us. So it's kind of like all linked. So it's a very good point. Sonia, do you have anything from you on that? On mind slides, holographic inserts, parasites?
You both covered the suppressor parasite very well. It was good information for the listeners. And like you said, it's common. I've got a gnarly something or other that I don't know. It seems like a combination of an SPE and something else that I haven't been able to get rid of. And I think that it's important, what I've learned too, it's part of the reclamation is when we're going through the process of clearing, healing, reclaiming, we're going through all of these raw emotions. We're clearing, we're bringing everything back into center and into balance. Until we reclaim, ourselves and bring ourselves back into center, into wholeness, we're in that constant process of witnessing, feeling, integrating. Okay, that process is through our body. So I think that's been my process in that. Like right now, sitting here speaking with both of you, I don't feel this AI contraption. But when it attacks me is in the sleep state. And again, if we remember that we are multidimensional beings, we have all of these aspects that we are bringing back into integration, into one. And so in the sleep state, we're off doing, all of this reclamation work to try to locate these fragmented aspects of ourselves, in these different timelines, etc. And I've noticed that with myself, when I reclaim something, or when I am doing my genetic path cutting, my light working, when I'm helping others, sometimes it's my family of origin, sometimes I'm helping other people. I see myself helping coworkers, etc. in the sleep state. When I, let's say, achieve some sort of clearing, I'm taking away the stolen energy. It's my energy, or whoever it is. Let's say it's myself. I'm reclaiming that part, right? The entities, this is an example. It's kind of interesting information for the listeners. The entities had claimed that, and when you try to take it back, they retaliate. Okay, so I'll see myself reclaiming, and then I'll wake up and I'm in intense pain. What they're doing is they're pushing a button, a trigger, something that I haven't been able to locate yet. They activate this suppressor parasitic entity, and what it does, as you both have talked about, is it helps. It is there to, it affects the neurology, the nervous system, the brain, the thoughts. It's mind control. They are using that to be able to control my thoughts and my light working, to prevent me actually from light working in the sleep state, prevent me from reclaiming. So they will, it's like, when you heard of the expression, I'm going to sick my wild dogs on you, I'm going to sick my dogs on you, like you do something, you sick your dogs on someone for whatever. They sick their suppressor parasitic entity on me. And so I'll wake up, and it's a little bit different than what you both described, but maybe it's similar, you can tell me, but I feel like it wraps around my right and left kidney. They attack my kidneys and my adrenals. Yes. And they also access via the gallbladder meridian. So it's here, around, all the way down, and then the sides of our bodies, all the way down the sides of our legs and out through our toes, our gallbladder. That's how they access. And they enter and leave via there. And so just wanted to add that I'm still, it's important information for us to, of course, when we elevate above all of that, the frequency itself doesn't allow any of that in. It doesn't. Now myself, I've been working on that. I'm trying to elevate myself out of these lower frequencies, out of this pain body. And I've made great strides. I've healed on some deep levels, and it's a process. But just wanting to mention that I'll go into the sleep state to try to reclaim something, and it triggers the entities. I took back my body part or whatever it was, and they stick it on me. It's like this trigger. I don't know. They push a button. I don't know how they do it. And suddenly I wake up and oh my gosh. And there's a process for me to relieve it. And then eventually after I wake up and I eat breakfast and I ground myself into the physical, it actually dissipates and it disappears. It's really weird. It's very strange. It's a strange type of SPE. I don't know if it's a special kind, but that would be my share on it.
Thank you, Sonia. Very well said, because you kind of also described a little bit to our listeners a process of reclamation of our parts, of our, the process of reclamation and integration, that each one of us, we are already doing it consciously or unconsciously, but you described the conscious process and shared. So this is very helpful for me, definitely, to hear that. Because we're all in this process together, and we're all, there's no competition. It's not a race. We're just sharing, and maybe it'll be helpful for our listeners too to just know that it's a process. It's okay. The most important thing is just becoming more and more conscious, more and more conscious. I just want to say something about this. As you were speaking, it came to my mind a little bit to say, really, give an analogy of mind control. And that is, imagine that we are only given a limited amount of bricks to play with. Like, imagine like our mind is like a Lego land. And mind control tries to make sure that we only have 5 bricks. That's all we have. And if we only have 5 bricks that are given to our mind to play with, our synapses, every connection, everything, all this electronic capacity of our mind will only be playing with those and creating all these different connections with these 5 bricks. Okay? How interesting that is. But if we give to our mind 20, 100, 200 bricks, do you see the capacity? The mind will immediately start adjusting, creating all these different pathways. What I'm trying to say is this. If we are never told that there is a light body, if we are never told that we are eternal spirit, if we are never told that there are extraterrestrials who are trying to mind control us and hijack our genetic material and trade it off planet somewhere, and that there are bases on the Mars, if we are never told that, it means we are never given these bricks to us, to our mind, to make up our own connections and start playing. We are never given the container in order to feel the mind. I'll give you an example. In Russian language, we do not have 2 words for cup. Like in English, you have a cup and you have a mug, correct? Yeah, you have a cup and a mug. What else do you have? Cup, mug.
Glass.
You have a glass. No, we have let's say cup. Cup, you have cup and mug. Okay, in Russian, we only have a cup. So that means that Russian psyche will see only one, will attribute only one meaning to the cup. So all cups of different sizes will only be described as a cup, whereas English eye will be able to come into the same room and say, oh, these are cups and these are mugs. Do you see? Because the brain already constructed 2 different containers for a cup and for a mug. Do you see? So the British person will be slightly more bricks in their brain to play with. The Russian, everything is going to be just a big blur of cups. Okay? The same is in other language. I know in some languages you have color blue, for instance. It's just blue. You don't have navy blue. You don't have other colors. So if you don't have a name for a certain color, your brain wouldn't recognize that color. It'll just see it as one color blue. It won't recognize another shades of blue. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. So if we are not given, if we are not given something to our brain, if information is hidden from us, our brain doesn't have much to play with. and it has this mind-controlled reality, these 5 bricks that are constantly being recycled for the thousands of years for humanity. This little, you know, false information that is presented and given to us, these 5 bricks that our minds are trying to play with. And we are not, and in the meantime, you know, the alien agenda is having a field day because we don't even know they exist. How wonderful, how convenient. We don't even know we are slaves. We don't even know we are being harvested. We don't even know this. Fantastic. We don't even know they are amongst us now because we don't have a framework. And because we have a mind slide, which tells us each time I mention the word alien, fall asleep, attack the messenger, or do something else and break the conversation and leave. This is the mind slide.
Right.
So I've just given a lot of given a lot of information, but I noticed so many times
That's really good.
I say something about aliens. I mentioned the word satanic ritual abuse. People start yawning, leaving the room, changing conversation, sneezing, and even attacking me for saying that I am negative and that I am always looking at the dark side. Do you see? This is the mind slide in action. I'm just trying to give examples.
Yeah, it's well said, Trinity. It's very well said. Nice job on that. I liked your analogy when you said the Lego bricks. My inner child goes, ooh, ooh. I just like that stuff. And I'm like, ooh, Lego bricks, yeah. But it helps because, you know, we only, you know, if you only have this minimal amount of Legos to play with, like you said, and then when you bring in the more bricks, like the healing will do that, right? The healing, the processing, the reclaiming, then we get more bricks, more Lego bricks to play with. And then we can expand our reality. We can start to see, you know, what's truly, really behind the scenes, what's really going on, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes, and I mean exactly that. And I mean what I want to say to us all, not be afraid to introduce more bricks, right? To override the mind slides. Yeah, thank you, Linda. Linda said it beautifully. Open mind means that if I come and say, here's the brick, and you say, oh, bring it in. Okay, let's see. Let's put it in my mind. Let's see what happens. But the closed mindset and the mind control straight away will hook us into fear. Oh my God, oh no, 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 I don't want. And this fear is usually linked. Like for instance, why a lot of people do not want to talk about satanic ritual abuse and child sacrifice and child abuse. Why? Because it's a very painful topic, which is linked to their own trauma, our collective human trauma, because we probably all at some point in our incarnation encountered those types of things. And none of us want, well, it's too painful to look. We're afraid of pain. But if we heal that pain, we won't be afraid of it. We will be willing to look at it as adults and constructively and see what we can do about it, rather than just like, oh no, no, oh, don't talk to me, don't talk, I can't handle this, don't talk, don't say this to me, I want to go. Yeah. Because when you have that type of information, when I watched that video yesterday by John Paul Rice, I cried. I you know, we put the link. We put the link here on this. But how can a sane person go and eat, go and go about their mortgages and their jobs and know that this goes on the planet? How can that be? But all of us do. I mean, all of us, you know, we do. And I was there as well. It's like there is a part that I just please don't tell me. I have enough problems. Don't talk about this. But this is very important. And that's exactly why it's been perpetuated, because we are, you know, because of that, because of the pain inside us, because of the mind slide, because of other 1,000 distractions that we have in our lives.
Yeah, I'd say it's to do with disbelief. that's the first common reaction, isn't it, of like disbelief. So if they start, how can our government poison us? No, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And then just shut it down. How are we being poisoned by our food? No, I don't believe it. How these vaccines causing cancer? Oh, I don't believe it. Without even having that open mind. So yeah, I'm just, that's what was coming to me. It's like the disbelief program is a bit like, people have to get over that. Once you start saying, okay, that is coming up, and just being aware of that and saying, okay, well, let's just find out some more information. Let's just go to this source or that source and just do your own research, and just and obviously go within your own heart. But it's all about being aware of how much the mind can have these implanted thoughts that we're talking about, and where are these implanted thoughts coming from? Is it really yours? Is it really yours? This is when you start where it's like really important to be aware of, because when I started on this journey, it's like becoming aware of like actually what was coming in some days were not mine, and which would often happen being around being, especially if you're empathic, you're an sensitive person. I had that for years, and until I had this self-awareness to go, these are not my thoughts, this is that person that I'm in the supermarket with, or these thoughts are someone that I'm connected with. So yeah, I went off on a tangent there, but it's all about just becoming aware of what comes up, these whether they're from the etheric implants, or where these thoughts whether they're yours or not, just to always question that, until you have that sort of observer aspect, and then you can sort of discern then a lot more. That makes sense.
Well said, well said. And I want to add as well to that when these kind of painful subjects are surfacing, and they are going to surface more and more, because we're going to be finding out more and more about these atrocities, especially what's done to children and human trafficking. People may say, well, okay, so I get the information, so what do I do? What do I do? But I would say this is that just being conscious about it, just being conscious about that this is going on, and just fitting it, just trying to sort of somehow allow the brain to process that alone is already a huge help. Because because it's different when we try to just totally deny something is happening and block it, from when we're consciously already know we're still going on about our day, we're not changing anything, but we're already integrating that awareness within us that actually something is terribly wrong, what is going on, and that needs to stop, and we need to help our children. It's already it's like we are inserting something which is gonna start doing changes, and consciously we are affecting the collective. So I would say we're already doing a lot, just being conscious about it and holding it as a conscious being. That's what I wanted to add. Sonia, do you have anything on that?
To wrap it up, maybe to say all of that is social engineering.
Yes.
That is how they are. Like when we look at, like Linda, when you said, what do you mean, we're being poisoned by these chemtrails? Well, who's sending these bloody chemtrails? Who's doing this? And what's in those vaccines that I'm being shot up with? You mean they're causing further disease, and they're dumbing down my DNA, and they're hurting me? Well, why in the world would the government tell me, with all these commercials on TV pulsing at me, trust your doctor, and go to your doctor and get advice from your doctor and get your flu shots and etc. It's like, okay, you start asking questions. And, you know, until you start asking questions, I mean, if you haven't tapped into your higher sensory perception, which the three of us have, and we're working on that still, but if you're still at the point where you're trying to tap into that and basically you're just hearing our words and you're like, I don't really know what they're talking about, I can't sense any of this. Well, until you sense any of that, maybe just look around you and say, look at the sickness and the war and the constant chaos around you. And if you don't like that, then now start asking questions. Well, where is it coming from? Who's benefiting from it? I know Lisa always says that. Who's benefiting from it? Why is it happening? Where is it coming from? Start asking questions. Because if you're like the three of us and you don't want to live in this cesspool anymore and you want things to change, then, you know, start there. But that's the social conditioning, the social engineering. That's how they've gotten away with it. You know, and then you both talked about, I don't want to hear it, you know, it's too painful to talk about because that's the trauma. I've got my own problems to deal with. You know, I was there too. It feels too overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I can barely keep it together with my, you know, you're in survival mode. I can barely keep it together and pay my bills and go to this, you know, go to my 3D job, and, you know, and I can't deal with someone else's problem anymore. That's part of the social engineering. It's the block trauma. You know, it's like something real that you can't tap into, that you feel overwhelmed. It's, again, you both were talking about mind slides. It's like you start saying these trigger words, again, maybe with these extremely low frequencies that are pulsating at people. They're being taught subliminally to reject every time they hear a piece of truth. Okay, when you hear satanic ritual abuse, I want you to close your eyes, or I want you to suddenly feel hungry and you have to go get a sandwich or something. This is social engineering. This is how they got away with it. So I just wanted to wrap it up by saying that's an example of social engineering.
Well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. And social engineering is mind control, because it's engineering a particular narrative that, you know, the 5 bricks stay where they are, and not 6, not 7, not 8, no, only 5. And that's what you are, the human race. You get your 5 bricks and you stay there. And that's exactly that, social engineering, to keep us in that. We're capable of millions of bricks simultaneously. That's what our brain is capable of.
Right.
Okay, so this is a good time probably will be to, Sonia, you wrapped it up quite nicely. So I would say that we will end our Mind Control 2 today. We will come back with Mind Control 3, where we will specifically focus on bioneurological warfare. We'll share experiences and go in a bit more depth, especially with regards to current events to do with pandemic, what is happening currently. So we will do that. In the meantime, obviously, we hope that you enjoyed our podcast number 3. And as always, we say, take what resonates, discard the rest. Have a lovely week ahead of you, and hope that we see you again anytime soon.
Okay, let's close our eyes and take a deep breath. Beloved God and the eternal Christ families serving the law of one, please amplify our prayer request. As the avatars of Christ Sophia and the truth spirit that we are, for one and for all, we pray for the sovereign rights of all humanity to be restored to God's natural laws on this earth. May all those that are awakening, feeling betrayed and confused by this anti-human war that is playing out, we lovingly decree that their hearts are healed, their spirits reclaimed in the power of our Holy Mother and Father that has returned to this earth. May we stand strong with love and courage, bringing coherence to every level of their consciousness, remembering the truth of the infinite God spark that we are. We pray on behalf of our children that the harvesting of Lush end completely. Please free humanity of enslavement, deception, and entrapment from the psychopathic death cults. We lovingly decree that divine right order and harmony on the Disclosure Ascension timeline. We will prevail in unity, and may the truth set us free. We are the cosmic Christ. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Bye.
In a minute.
Thank you. Bye.